Order of operations. Whenever we're covering order of operations, we have to follow the rule. Which rule are we talking about? You have to remember the GEMDAS. Most common, you will really call it PEMDAS, but I prefer calling it GEMDAS due to the fact that GEMDAS will tell you if you're doing with groups. Okay, so I'll write it down here. So the first step will be the grouping. So put GEMDAS like this, GEMDAS, from left to right. Yes, I prefer calling it G. The G stands for grouping. So that means that anytime that you have any symbol of parentheses, brackets, curly brackets, radical symbol, absolute value, a fraction bar, so this one is the fraction bar, that has to be in the first order. So first you do anything that stands for grouping. Now the second step is to do exponents. So you will see something like being cube or something being a square. Okay. Now MD, well, we know that stands for multiplication. Now remember that multiplication or division. And then we have addition or subtraction. They go under the same order. So that's why I put the arrow here from left to right. This is an arrow that's going to tell you from left to right. So first come, first serve. Okay, so just remember GEMDAS. Sometimes you will see as PEMDAS, which stands for parentheses, but I prefer calling GEMDAS because then we know that it's parentheses, brackets, curly brackets, fraction, radical, absolute value, or a fraction bar. Okay, now then we do exponents, multiplication or division, which follows under the same order, and then addition or subtraction. What I honestly prefer, these ones here, saying combining like terms. Okay, now let's do a few examples. Example number 1, we're going to have 7 plus parentheses 4 divided with 5 squared plus 3, and we close parentheses. Now let's recall our beloved GEMDAS. GEMDAS, from left to right. So every time that you're doing the problem, I would recommend you having this on the side so it just reminds you, and at the same time this is gonna help you memorize it. Okay, so first we gotta do anything that relates into grouping, which means we're gonna have to do this parenthesis first. The parenthesis that is here, we have to do it first. So let's do what is in the parenthesis. But inside the parenthesis, so I'll copy the rest. But inside the parentheses, I have a multiplication and I have an exponent and I have an addition symbol. What I'm going to perform first, well, following the GEMDAS tells you that you have to do exponent first. So I'll copy my parentheses again. And what is 5 to the square? Remember this 5 squares I have in 5 times 5. Therefore, you're going to have 25. So dot it with 25 plus 3. Now, we have to be inside the parentheses. We're still doing the parentheses. So 4 times 25 should be 100. So you have 7 parentheses and 100 plus 3. You still have the parentheses. We just have to combine the bottom. So 100 plus 3 should be 103. And yes, we still keep the parentheses. So it should be 103. However, now I need to clear this parenthesis. And to clear the parentheses, we have a phantom 1 in front of it. So it's 1 times 103 should be 103. Now you add 7 plus 103 should be 110. So that's your final answer. Okay, let's do the next example. The next example is problem number 2. In problem number 2, we're having 6 times 4 minus 12 divided by 3 minus 8. And once again, you have to write your GEMDAS. GEMDAS, from left to right. So first we have to do the grouping. There's no parentheses, there's no brackets, there's no curly brackets, there's nothing that resembles a grouping here. Now let's go for exponents. Do we see any exponents? We don't see any exponents. So let's go for multiplication and division. Look that here you have a multiplication and here you have a division. But which one should I do first? Recall that it's left to right, so whoever comes first, in this case the multiplication comes first. So I'm going to have to do these two guys here. So 6 times 4 should be 24, and then I will copy the same thing. Minus 12 divided by 3 and minus 8. Now let's do that division that we have to do. But be careful here. This division comes with a negative 12 divided by 3, because any number takes the symbol that it has in the front. So negative 12 plus 3. So what is negative 12 plus 3? Remember that you're dividing numbers that have different signs, therefore your outcome should be a negative number. So I'm going to have a negative 4, and I have a 24 in front of it, and I have a minus 8. Now there's only subtraction that we have to do, so you can perform this from left to right, or just combine the like terms. You could either do your associative property or just combine it. 24 minus 4, go from left to right. So 24 minus 4 should be 20, and then you keep your minus 8 here. Now this 20 minus 8 should give you 12. When I meant here your associative property, some students or some people prefer to do this. So on the side I'm going to do this. So this will be optional. 24 minus 4 minus 8. Some people will just tend to do this first. 24 and associate the negative numbers, which will be minus 12. And 24 minus 12 actually give you 12. So you're talking about the same answer. Okay? It's just a personal preference there. So that will be for problem number 2. Let's go moving forward. Number 3. What are we having for problem number 3? 4 parentheses 112 divided by 1/8 parentheses dotted with 15. Now, once again, you have to keep writing this. So I'm going to keep writing. I'm going to have GEMDAS. So grouping. Is there anything that resembles grouping? Yes. We have to do these parentheses first. Now, I have to divide this 112 divided by 1/8. But to divide fractions, recall that you have to change that into a multiplication statement. Either you can do that on the side or you can work it inside. So if you prefer doing it on the side, you can do it. I honestly prefer working on the side. So you will have to do this. 112, well, I'm going to change this division into a multiplication dotted with 8 over 1. Because to divide, you need to multiply by its reciprocal. So now here we can reduce. We will obtain 4 goes into here 3 times, 4 goes into here 2 times. So you're left with 1 times 2, which is 2, and 3 times 1, which is 3. So here we will have 4 parentheses. We still have the parentheses and 2/3 dotted with 15. Now, what I'm going to do first? Well, you have a multiplication symbol, so if there is no symbol here in between them, that still means that you have to multiply them. So you have a multiplication, you have another multiplication. Remember, multiplication is associative, so you can multiply either way, you still have your same answer. Or you can prefer doing from left to right. Now, this will be the most preferred way, since you can put all over it under 1, like 15 over 1 and 4 over 1. So here you can simplify. 3 goes into here once, 3 goes into here 5 times. So now you can multiply all of them. 4 times 2 is 8, times 5 is going to be 40. 40 over 1, which is just 40. Now, if you prefer to do from here, the optional case would have been you first multiply the two fractions, which is 4 times 2 over 3 will be 8/3 times 15, and then you will have to do 15 over 1, and then you say, well, how can I reduce this? You will say 3 goes into 1, 3 goes into here 5 times, and then 8 times 5 is going to be 40, and 40 over 1 is just 40. See, you still have the same answer. But it will be better if you just identify that they are multiplying, so you can multiply it all at once. Now, let's do the next problem. Problem number 4. What are we having for problem number 4? We have 23 plus 64 over negative 8 divided with 3 minus 12. Recall that you have to remember your order of operation, which is GEMDAS. I'll write it here once again. So every single time that you're doing this, it's recommended that you keep writing it until you memorize it, from left to right. Now, let's look for any grouping. But recall what grouping stands for. Grouping was anything that was parentheses, bracket, curly brackets, fraction bar. So I just say fraction bar. So there's a fraction bar here. So it means that you have to do that. So let's just focus on this part. What is 64 divided by negative 8? And recall that you're also taking this positive 64 divided by negative 8. So what is going to be positive 64 divided by negative 8? That's going to give you a negative 8. Then you have divided with 3 minus 12. Now, GEMDAS tells you you have a subtraction, a multiplication, and subtraction, so you have to do this multiplication. Now, negative 8 times 3 should be negative 24. Different signs give you a negative outcome. Now, 23 minus 24 should be negative 1. And then you have a minus 12 here. Negative 1 minus 12 should be negative 13. Let's do the next problem here on the side. And once again, we're going to erase this because every single time that you're doing the problem, I want you to get into the habit that you have to keep writing any formula or any method that you are just learning, you need to memorize. So problem number 5 says it's going to be 3 minus 5, all of that to the cube, plus 18 over 3, and then you square that. Okay, so let's do the parentheses first. What is 3 minus 5? Because you have two parentheses. Which one I do it first? It doesn't matter. So in this case, let's do these parentheses first. 3 minus 5 should be negative 2. And then you have this cube. I'm going to write it. I did this one here. Now, plus, you can do this all at once if you want, because there is nothing else that there is to be done. So 18 over 3 should be 6. So you have 6 squared. Now, what is negative 2 to the cube? Recall that whenever you have an exponent, it's like you're multiplying itself as many times as you need. I forgot to write the GEMDAS here, so it should be GEMDAS from left to right. So let's do negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4 times a negative 2 should give you a negative 8. Therefore, all of this here should be a negative 8 plus 6 squared. 6 times 6 is 36. Now you have a negative 8 plus 36. That should give you 28. Yes, 28 as the final answer. Moving forward, we have the next problem here. So number 6, we have 5 absolute value 3 squared minus 12 close absolute value minus negative 8. Now, once again, we have to write GEMDAS. GEMDAS. Now, anything that resembles grouping in this case has to be these absolute values that we have here. So let's perform the absolute value first. Take that as a priority. So 3 squared should be done first, then this subtraction. So 3 squared should be 9. So you're going to have to do 9 minus 12, and copy the same thing that you have on the outside. So 9 minus 12 is -3, so you have 5, absolute value, -3, absolute value minus -8. Now, let's do this absolute value. So to do the absolute value, well, it means that you have to take just the value of it. So -3 becomes positive. Or another thing that you can remember is, whenever you have absolute value, you just make it positive. So 5 and then parenthesis 3. Now, why is it a parenthesis? Because remember that there is nothing here. It's probably like a multiplication symbol. And recall that multiplication is the same as parentheses as well. Like if there is no symbol in between, there's nothing here. Like I still have nothing in here. So 5 times 3 and then minus -8. Now let's do multiplication first. And also remember that you have a minus -1, like a phantom 1 here that is going to be multiplying it. But let's do these two first. 5 times 3 should be 15 minus -8. But you have this phantom 1 that is multiplying, so you're going to do -1 times -8 should be positive 8. And 15 plus 8 should give you 23. Now let's do problem number 7. Problem number 7 is a little bit long. Let's see. 10 minus 5 times 2 squared plus parenthesis 36 divided by 6 close parenthesis minus 3. Now let's remember our rules, GEMDAS. So is there any grouping here? Yes, there is a grouping here. There is a parenthesis that we have to deal with. 36 divided by 6 should be 6. So 10 minus, and I will copy the same thing here, plus 6 minus 3. Now, after the grouping, there is no more grouping. Exponents. Is there any exponents here? Yes, there is an exponent here that we can do. So that should be 10 minus 5 times 4, because 2 squared is 4, plus 6 minus 3. Now, here's a multiplication that we can do, which is -5 times 4. So that should be -20 plus 6 minus 3. Now, let's do this part here. So 20 minus 10 should give you, 10 minus 20 should give you -10. And now plus 6 minus 3, or you could have done it all at once. So this and this will combine to -4 minus 3, and all of these will combine to -7 as the final answer. Let's do this last problem. Problem number 8. We have some radical, absolute values, exponents, sum, and a fraction bar. So let's recall once again our property GEMDAS, right? Our guide to do this, GEMDAS. So anything that resembles grouping will be the fraction bar. So, and also we have the radical and the absolute value. But which one will we do it first? But remember that this fraction bar is going to divide this into two things, the top part and the bottom part. There are two ways that you can do this. You can either do the top part first and then do the bottom part and then match them all together, or be working them at the same time. Now, let's do working them at the same time. So I'm going to have to do in the top part, analyze this, and I have the outer grouping is this radical, but then the inside I have the absolute value. So I might need to do the absolute value first. So 5 radical of absolute value of -25 minus 2 to the cube. You could have also done the 2 to the cube first, but just keep the mechanics of it, following the GEMDAS. Now absolute value, well, let's do this absolute value inside for the bottom part. So absolute value of -3, and recall that here you have like a phantom 1 here. So -1 times -1 should be a positive 1, close absolute value, plus 7 squared. Now let's do the top part. We have to perform that absolute value. Absolute value of -25 is going to be, we're going to do this part here, okay? We're going to do this absolute value here. It will be 5 square root of 25 minus 2 cubed all over absolute value of -2 plus 7 squared. So I'm running out of space. I will have to do this on the side. Then we will obtain, well, the top part. Now we're going to have to do this square root here. So square root of 25 is 5. So I'm going to have 5 parentheses 5 minus 2 cubed all over. Now absolute value of negative 2 is 2 plus 7 squared. Now let's do some multiplication on the tops, or the exponent first. We have to do the exponent. But be careful here that this exponent is only affecting to the 2. It's not affecting to the negative in front of it. So we're going to have 5 parentheses 5 minus 8 over 2 on the bottom part. I have to do 7 squared, which is 49. And then I have to do 5 times 5 is 25 minus 8 over 2 plus 49 is 51. Then 25 minus 8 is 17 over 51. Now recall that in any algebra problem, your answer must be reduced to its lowest terms. Now, is this reduced to its lowest terms? Maybe, maybe not. Well, the only case will be if they have a common factor of 17, because 17 is a prime number. And it happens to be that 51 is 17 times 3. Look, 17 times 3 is going to give you 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 1 is 1 plus 2 is 5. So yes, 17 times 3 give you 51. So you can say 17 goes into here once, 17 goes into here 3 times. Therefore, your final answer should be 1/3. So that was everything for order of operations. Recall this below, or GEMDAS, that is going to come in handy. Anytime that you're working on the problem, make sure to write that down.